Good evening to all of you. Welcoming you to our 8th webinar series on the topic of Is the Online Safety Bill Actually Being Safe? This webinar is organized by IDM Nation Campus and the Buckinghamshire New University College of Legal Studies, gathering here with some expertise knowledge. So beforehand, just to keep you all in loop, there will be the agenda will be put on the chat box, so you guys can refer for any further question. So this is an interesting topic, I would say, and very timely based topic, because currently in Sri Lanka there is a heated debate is ongoing whether or not enacting such bill would bring a change to our society or to make it worse than present. Introducing myself, I'm the moderator, Aisha Hazri, who will be engaging during the course of the event. We are here to give you an understanding and outline of the topic, which I would hope it will bring a change to each and everyone who is presented here. Like John Wilson, who is the famous author, rightly said, the end of the law is not abolish or restrain, but to prevent and enlarge freedom. Where there is no law, there is no freedom. Following those wise words, and today is be a day there where we could know whether the freedom of individuals is or completely it's being silent in terms of protecting the rights and the democratic freedom, particularly the freedom of expression. So I could see ample of participants who being in today's discussion, and I do believe that we could bring a change to the society by knowing the legal framework, and we could also be aware of what's happening in current issues in Sri Lanka, and that's why we have been gathered here. Ladies and gentlemen, what is online safety bill? If I may explain to you in very simpler terms, it is designed to regulate a certain content from online spaces, which is also give a framework that which provides for the safety of individuals and groups, which is particularly for children and women who are increasingly vulnerable to threat online. Moving forward, we are fortunate to have two experts on online safety bill with us today. Our guest speaker is Mr. Fisher Veragoda, attorney at law with years of experience, especially in this specific field, and will be sharing the insight on the legal framework aspect of online safety bill. Moving on, we also have Mr. Bhadraka Manamendra, who is a legal profession with extensive background in the field of law and has an extensive experience in the respective field. So they will be sharing their output and the perspective in terms of topic, especially how it can be related to us and to the society. So this is just a kind information for the audience. There's a small announcement that which I could inform you that you can raise your questions. You feel free to raise your questions on the chat box, or if you face any difficulty, you also can raise your hand. So then we will be getting back to you towards the end of the session, which means the Q&A session. So yes, so ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's us dive into the main substance itself. So, and I would like to ask this question from Mr. Bhadraka Manamendra. So when it comes to the online safety system, there is a huge heated debate that is ongoing in Sri Lanka that most of us are aware. So, sir, with during this discussion, so I would like to make it as a solid foundations of today's discussion. I would like to ask you a question: what possible online safety concerns should be addressed in general?
Before I answer to your question, I like to move your attention to this very good judgment, which is Chandler versus State of New Jersey case in 1939. In that judgment, American lawyer and Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. stated that my right to swing my fist ends where your nose begins. Now that is a lot of things we can understand what is our right and how we have to deal with our rights. Now, in your question is what possible online safety concerns should be addressed in general. So before that, we have to understand what is online safety. Because without knowing what is online safety, there is no point, I guess, going further. Now, while cyber security protects, we know what is cyber security. Cyber security protects devices and networks from harm by third parties. And online safety protects the people using them from harm by the devices, networks, and the third parties. It is what we call appropriate approach to personal safety when using digital technologies. Now, we are in a digital world, we all know. So we can't deviate from that. So we have to understand the online safety is very important topic. And we have to understand what is online safety. What is online safety? For that, because of we are in a digital society, we have to understand what is sustainable digital society also. Before I answer your question, the sustainability is valuing the user's digital rights. Now, what are the digital rights? So that is a new thing, I guess, to our country. There are I have learned there's 3 things for digital rights. First one is producing appropriate contents for different age groups and vulnerable users. That is first thing. The second thing is developing possibilities for users, participation and engagement. And the third thing, and the very most important thing, protecting users' freedom of expression. I believe those are the 3 things we have to protect as digital rights. And for sustainability, we should promote digital literacy among users, including their critical awareness in digital cultures. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind before we come to the topic. And now, before I still didn't answer your question. So do we really need online safety in Sri Lanka? That is the first thing. So before we talk about all these apps and all, so do we really need it? So according to TRCSL data, as of June 2022, Sri Lanka accounts for 19.432 million mobile broadband subscriptions and about 3.83 million fixed broadband subscriptions. And there were 11.34 million internet users in Sri Lanka in January 2022. Sri Lanka internet penetration rate stood at 52.6% of the total population at the start of 2022. Some analysis indicates that internet users in Sri Lanka increased by 528,000, that is 4.9% between 2021 to 2022. So the stat says our country is in a digital society. Now more than 52.6% people means that is the majority. So we have to address and make their online safety true and make their sustainable digital life is a true. And then we have to see why we need online safety in Sri Lanka. So I said that do we need online safety in Sri Lanka and why we need online safety in Sri Lanka. Now we know daily life revolves around the internet. Now, even now, we are using a digital platform. Those days we had seminars. Now we are having a webinar. So the life has changed, right? So from work to education and even talking with friends. Now all these things has come to a digital platforms. The more online accounts and devices we have, the greater the scope for cyber criminals to cause us harm, right? So that is why it is now ever more essential to understand online safety and make laws which protect us from threats that may harm our data and devices. Now, it is very necessary thing, right? And when we use the internet, exposing ourselves to a wider range to a potential online threats. That also we all know practically what is happening now online, right? Digital landscapes, as we know, then are constantly evolving as cyber criminals devise new ways to target internet users. Target users are now, I can list now to your answer to your question. Now what are the what possible online safety concerns we should be addressing in general? When it's come to, I can list out like this. The first thing is identity theft. That is a great threat. Data breaches, malware and viruses, phishing and scam emails, fake websites, online scams, romance scams, then inappropriate content, cyberbullying, and faculty privacy settings, and etc. There are a lot more. So those are the general areas I believe we have to address from online safety bill, and we'll discuss whether it has fulfilled with this act or not.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us wonderful examples. And also, we do understand the terms and the definition you expressed for the online safety measures as well. Sir, you mentioned the fact that the digital rights, and also you have expressed the 3 categories and 3 criteria that should be followed. So I do understand that sir, you rightly mentioned that our countries run through the digital platform. That is something that should be highlighted in today's webinar. And how online safety system arises, rights, and when we go ahead with this conversation, this is kind of things that bring up a very important aspect. And we come to a legal framework, something like a significant questions with regards to how it can be enforced in a legal perspective, in a legal aspect. I think this perspective can be answered by Mr. Tishya Veragoda. So I would ask you a question of what legislation do we use currently apart from this bill for online safety matters? Sir, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Aisha, for giving me the opportunity to join you guys in this discussion. To take something out of what Bhadraka said, he pointed out various things that we need online safety on. In my personal opinion, the present bill doesn't address any of them. The word safety is used in the present bill to hoodwink the public. It is there for the sole and singular purpose of making a demon look like an angel. I would say so because in 2021, the then Justice Minister, Honorable Ali Sabri, proposed a bill called Prevention of Misinformation and Online Falsehoods Bill. Now, what we see today as the online safety bill is the same thing. It is an absolutely draconian piece of legislation that has been proposed, which will turn us into another North Korea or a Singapore. Singapore in the sense, not in the sense of the development that we hear and see, but Singapore in the sense of the lack of freedom of speech. If you take Singapore, it's in the freedom of speech index, it is ranked well below us also. It is somewhere in the 120s out of 190 countries. So that's not where we should go in terms of freedom of speech. So I would particularly say that this is a horrible piece of legislation that has been proposed in Sri Lanka. As to your question, as to what other laws are in place, in relation to the protection of women and children and online pornography, sharing of online pornography online, so on and so forth, relating to children, the penal code already has provisions. So that aspect of online safety is covered. Electronic Transactions Act secures transactions. Online Payment Gateways and Devices Act protects online transactions in a particular way. The Money Laundering Act, that covers also the financial aspects. Then in addition, I believe we have the Computer Crimes Act, where somebody uses a computer to cause damage to another or illegal access to somebody's device. All of that is covered by the Computer Crimes Act. The only things I feel right now that is needed in Sri Lanka is for the safety of what we call sharing of hate porn, for example, voyeurism, for example. These are the type of crimes that we need to look at in terms of what we are talking of online safety. But unfortunately, for some reason, the government has thought fit that they should attempt to curtail speech also as part of online safety. Now we know that the internet is very clearly a mode of expression, a place of expression. If one looks at the history when online anonymity was taken away in 1996 by the US Congress, a man named John Perry Barlow published what is called the Declaration of Independence of the Internet. Maybe it's something that one should read up. It talks of physical world laws not applying to the internet. And then we have seen in 1998, 1999, in the US, there was a law called the COPA, Combating Online Child Pornography. That bill, when it came into operation, several provisions were challenged in the Supreme. It went all the way. So in the US, it's the district court, the circuit appellate courts, and then to the Supreme Court. It went all the way there, and the Supreme Court held that certain provisions, some provisions which are identical in the present online safety bill, are unconstitutional and in violation of the freedom of speech. So the point being freedom of speech as well as freedom of expression and freedom of thought. So in that sense, I believe that what this present law that is being proposed is trying to do is to prevent dissent from being shared. In fact, the present bill seems to suggest that His Excellency the President can appoint a commission called the Online Safety Commission. And in fact, this is the Online Safety Commission that will eventually decide what is the truth and what is not true. Now, what is true to me might not be what is true to you. And progression of science happens always on the basis of challenging what you know as the truth or the existing truth. So progression of science even would not happen if we allow this bill to come about. So I think there are serious issues with this present bill, but I would say that there are laws that are there sufficient to cover certain aspects. Yes, we do need certain aspects covered, but this bill does not attempt to cover any of those areas.
Thank you, sir, for giving us the in-depth analysis of the legal aspect. And it is touched upon, sir, two important points which you figured it out, because we actually figured it out. Firstly, on the matter whether the term safety is being used effectively in the specific bill. Also, you have mentioned the fact of freedom of speech as a second point where we should be look on. So we also discuss about a further discussion about what is the current and other aspects of laws, kind of cyberbullying and online transactions, and all sort of cyber crimes related aspect. So now the question that pops up to our participants may be, what actually the positivity in this specific bill. So what is specifically it brings to the society, whether it is whether it is protect, as rightly sir mentioned, that it is very needed for Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka is operated completely a digital platform. So my other question would be raised to Mr. Bhadraka Manamedra. So, sir, the question for you is that what are the positive of this proposed bill?
Important thing is, before this bill, we didn't have anything in Sri Lanka. So at least now we have something to talk about, debate about. Otherwise, there was nothing we had regarding regulating these online platforms. So it is a positive thing. At least now we have something to debate. So because of this bill, now we debate and we trying to understand what is online safety, and we're trying to learn about it, and we are the society is searching about the others laws in the other countries, and they are that is a good thing. So that is the most positive thing that I am seeing in this bill. So actually, rather than that, I don't think there is much to talk about positives of this bill, because in my opinion, there are only 2 or 3% is there to we can say it is positive things. Otherwise, the 98% is only negative things that we can see. Anyway, since you asked what are the positive things, I see several things that I can mention, but those are also arguable, that we have to understand that also. Now, when we say the part 3 of the bill, section part 3 of the bill, section 22, which deals with the cyberbullying. That is a good thing. Now, this bill has takes some steps to prevent the cyberbullying. That is a positive thing. But even we can do that from the amendments to the penal code as well. But they have taken some measures. That is a good thing. And section 23 is about the child abuse. As Mr. Tisha Veeragowda mentioned, we already have laws to prevent child abuse, but they have include section 23 to this bill to protect children from the online child abuse. That is also, we can say, it is a positive thing. But we already have laws, and we can amend laws if those are not enough to protect our child from that. But we can say that is also a positive thing. And section 24, that is a positive thing. That is a new offense creating from this bill, which is taking a new step, which says making or altering bots is an offense in Sri Lanka. That is a good thing, because I believe there is no such a law in Sri Lanka rather than this. If this comes to if this bill pass from the Sri Lanka, this will be the first law, I believe. We're going to have this kind of a law. And then apart from those things, I don't see any positive things. I have to be very I don't see any other things that can say positive about this bill.
Thank you, sir, for being very open about this conversation, because we do understand during your discussion it was told that specifically this open online safety bill is making the same sense unlike other laws, but not bringing a major change, rather than bringing the same thing again. So when you explain the current progress of online safety bill and the positivities, which we could see, there's only very rare positivity. We could see that there's a new offenses, which is being also pointed out throughout this online safety bill. Also, sir, when you explain the current progress and you have pointed out there is a threat to a society, and that is why there is more than the positivity towards this act, there is more negativity and more criticisms that is being forward for this act. And by pointing out the controversial, we just for the during the discussion we just got to know the positivity of the acts, but let us know the negativity as well, and what are the controversy that the current Sri Lanka is being facing by enacting this bill. So I would ask this question from Mr. Tisha Veragoda. Sir, what are the negatives of this proposed bill that you could see?
The short answer is everything. This creates, now Bhadraka mentioned 3 sections, section 22, 23, and 24. In fact, I have a serious issue with section 22, the proposed section 22, harassment. It talks of a situation where the targeted person will have to basically, if any person makes a statement of fact about a targeted person, which involves personal information, that could be an offense of harassment. So imagine I say that a particular politician was seen at a particular place with not that person's spouse. I can get arrested for that. I'm making a true statement of fact. That person X was at a particular place in a compromising way with someone who is not that person's spouse. Should I go to jail for saying that? Does that constitute harassment? So one of the basic principles in law when they are being drafted is that the law should be specific. In this bill, everything seems to be non-specific. It's vague. So when it's vague, the issue is that we wouldn't know, the citizen wouldn't know whether something is legal or not, permitted or not. And in a recent bill, in the Prevention of Terrorism Act Amendment Bill, the Supreme Court said vague laws are not permitted. The Supreme Court has right throughout held that, but in this particular case, the Supreme Court held that that is unconstitutional, because when the law is vague, the police doesn't know whom to arrest and whom not to arrest. So wrongdoers will get away and innocent people might get caught up in it. So right throughout this bill, that is the problem. It's vague, except possibly for section 23 and 24. But I say that section 23 is covered by the penal code. Maybe a small amendment to it will cover that also. And maybe an amendment to the penal code to include section 24. Then we don't need this whole bill. Because the whole scheme of this bill is the curtailment of freedom of expression. Or creating a situation where people don't know what is permitted, what is not permitted. And therefore, what we call the chilling effect on the freedom of speech. People won't be encouraged to make any statements because they are scared that they will get arrested under this bill. So in fact, it is not a safety that is being created by this bill. It is only a deterrent, a fear factor. So that goes against the entire constitutional ethos that the freedom should be expanded, promoted and fostered, and not curtailed. So I would say that there is absolutely nothing good in this bill, and everything about this bill is bad. It's made in bad faith. It's published so that, I mean, a few months ago, there was a politician who said that they can't post anything on social media. People wish them rest in peace or Nivan Suva. So therefore, social media should be banned. In fact, today there is a post saying that there's a female teacher who is dancing with her navel showing, and therefore social media should be curtailed. One teacher dancer showing her navel, and then there's an entire political party saying we should regulate social media. So where's that logic? I say that this law is being brought for collateral purposes, for political purposes. It's there to shut down dissent. And that is not how a democracy should work. So I don't think that this bill should ever see the light of day.
Thank you, sir, for giving us in-depth analysis on the matter when it comes to the negativity of the online safety bill. So I just picked up one point on your discussion is that the harassment, where it has been drawback when it comes to this, specifically this act. I think this is something that the participants should also keep noted, because it's there are loopholes and drawbacks which is entirely fully completed through this act, it seems. So there is a, so I also could understand the basic principles, even for laws, even the basic principles of specification is being lacked on this act. So that brings a very big huge amount of drawback to by enacting such bill. So I would like to ask from sir, it seems, from Sir Tisha Veragoda. So what possible changes that should be made to this proposed bill from your perspective?
I would say that this bill requires a complete overhaul. For example, this bill, some of these clauses have been tried only in Singapore and Malaysia. But in contrast, the European countries, keeping in line with the ECHR, have drawn up new laws that address some of these issues. Not all of them, but some of them. So the question is, where do we draw inspiration from? I think that this bill has to be rethought from the beginning. It should be looked at not from the perspective of trying to protect the government from being exposed. Although it's called online safety, like I said from the beginning, it's nothing about safety. So the word is used purely for the purpose of getting over this other draft, which sounds very draconian. So I would say the processors now, for example, in this bill, it is a commission, online safety commission, that decides what is true or not. And the person who is publishing it doesn't even get an opportunity of coming and defending himself before that information is removed. So if you take a country like Burma, in Myanmar, essentially, even if you put a like to something that the government decides as being untrue, you can get prosecuted. We don't want a situation like that. We already know that the ICCPR Act is being abused. We have seen a woman who was wearing a steering of a ship somewhere from Hasselaka. She was arrested saying that she was wearing a Dharma Chakra on her dress. And she was kept in remand without bail for almost a year. We have seen that happening. A lady who made a joke about Prince Siddhartha was kept in remand for several weeks until the High Court granted her bail. So we have seen with our own eyes how laws can be abused by the police. So therefore, the government must look at this online safety from a different perspective, not from the perspective of protecting itself, but from the perspective of protecting the public. If we take Germany, for example, they have a law, not a draft bill, but a law that is more people-friendly. It doesn't curtail freedom of speech. So I think it's important that we realize this. Now, for example, this present bill doesn't even allow you to have a pseudonym, a fake account if you want to. Now, in the government sector, government public officers can't speak out. So if they want to be a whistleblower to expose a massive corruption, the moment they create a fake account to expose it, they will get caught up. So we need to rethink this entire bill. And we need to draw inspiration possibly from the German draft, possibly from the UK draft that is there. In fact, very recently, the UK passed their online safety bill. I think it has gone for Queen's assent. I don't know whether it has been done so far. But that's the idea. We must have something that is robust and people-friendly, not draconian and government-friendly.
Thank you, sir. And also, sir, that you have rightly mentioned that online safety system has to be uh, it has to be pointed out very different perspective than just sticking on online safety. That it has to also look into the public as well as a whole. So I would like to seek the perspective from the other panelists, Mr. Manamedra. Sir, what do you think about the same perspective on Sir Disha?
Yes, I totally agree with Mr. Tishaveragoda. And my personal opinion also, this whole bill has to be changed. Because when because I believe government has not understand what is online safety. The government, no, I believe government trying to make their safety by using this online safety bill. So that is happening. That is what happening from this bill. That is my opinion, right? So I believe first of all, government has to uh, understand what is online safety and what should they regulate, what they should not regulate, and what is citizens' expectations regarding this online safety. Government has to consider all of this. Otherwise, they can't just bring a bill and name it as online safety bill and pass it through the parliament and make their safety from this through this bill. That is not fair. So because legislators' duty is to make laws for betterment of the society, not for the betterment of the government, right? So therefore, we need online safety. That is, we have to we need online safety because we are in a digital society. We need sustainable digital society for our future. So we have no doubt about that. But the problem is whether this bill fulfill that thing. My opinion is that is big no. It is zero.
Us the wonderful answer to our question. Also, sir, which you mentioned, I understood that there is a question that comes up whether law shapes the society or society shapes the law. So, by said that, when we distinguish with other countries, especially Sir Tisha has very correctly mentioned about the UK laws, how it has been improved very recently, and which is being growing and figure outing some issues in terms of online safety bill. And this legislation has been a vast change towards the society, and it can bring a change, which can be an example for Sri Lanka to make a change as well. So I would like to ask Sir Tisha Veragoda to answer this question. So what examples we can use from other countries on online safety, in terms of online safety?
So if you look at online safety in the general sense of what Bhadraka was talking earlier, where he was talking about phishing to spamming to various other aspects. That is what is actually meant by online safety, making the internet safe for the citizens. So there's enough sufficient EU directives on these areas. And those get challenged quite often if they are not up to mark. Same goes in the US. If you really look at it, the US, all these things, the moment there is a little defect in the law, the American Civil Liberties Union, Free Speech Coalition, there are so many other organizations that will go and challenge these things. And in the US, for example, there is post-enactment judicial review. So even if the law is made, people can go and challenge later on. When they are prosecuted under the law, they can still challenge the law. But in Sri Lanka, you can't. You get only one chance, a 14-day time period before it becomes law to go and challenge. So we must take extra caution. We must also take extra effort. The government, when enacting a bill of this sort, must take extra effort to have negotiations, discussions with the stakeholders. Unfortunately, just after it was published, the Minister of Interior has gone on record saying that he had very little to do with this draft. It was drafted by the previous ministers, and now he's just presenting it in Parliament. So he's basically disassociating with himself from the bill that is being presented. So I think that he's trying to make it nobody's baby. So in that sense, I think it's important that we realize that this is something very dangerous. Even the government doesn't want to touch it, but they want to pass it. So I think that overhauling this is the only way out. And for that, we have to look at the EU and the US. That's my view.
So I would like to divert the same question to our other panelist, Sir Badrika Manabedra. So what is your opinion on this matter as well? Whether you have anything to be added on?
Now, first I have to say, this bill is a copy-paste of the Singapore law. So I'm not going to talk about that, right? That is a copy-paste. So our legislators have not done nothing. They just drag that to Sri Lanka and just put it, right? So that is there, right? Now we'll see several laws, other jurisdictions, what we can actually take from good things, right? In the United Kingdom, previously, criminal legislation is used as the primary measure to counter cyber abuse, right? But very recently, they had their online safety bill, and that is a very strong bill which passed, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks back. I can't remember the exact date which when they passed it. Even that is if we can, if our students can read it, that is a very strong bill, which even give power to state. If tech companies do not comply with the regulations, they can fine up to 18 million pounds or 10% of the annual global turnover for that tech companies. That is a very strong law which they have passed. Their minister says that is going to be a very big turnover about the social platforms in the UK. So we'll see how it's going to be, how they going to work it in the UK in the future, because it's still a very new act. And since Mr. Tisha Veeragoda also mentioned about the German law, the German law is a network enforcement law. That is also a very strong law, which specifically, I believe, not only for that, but it's have more focused about the hate speech. In social media companies in Germany are mandated to delete or block evidently unlawful content within 24 hours. That is a very strong law which has in Germany. Even it is a very complicated cases. They only have 1 week to delete or block that content. So otherwise, I guess they can find the tech companies in that law also. I can't remember whether it is exactly that or not, but they have some kind of a punishment for that also if they doesn't comply with that. And French government also passed a similar type of law, at the same time. That is back in 2018, I guess. Mr. Tisha Veeragoda mentioned European Union. That now in European Union there is a law. Actually, there is a regulation called General Data Protection Regulation. That normally that called GDPR. That laying the foundations for data protection and privacy of the citizens of European Union. That is a very good law, which we can look into, and those are very progressive laws, I believe. And Canada has Personal Information Protection and Electronics Documents Act. That also we can get some idea how to shape our online safety bill, because our Sri Lankan bill is nothing. We have related to online safety. We have something else under the name under the board of online safety. So we can look into that act and take something. And even China, 2016 passed a cyber security law, and in 2021 they have passed two laws called data security law and personal information protection law. They have only 3 laws related to online safety. Those are the things: 2016 one and 2022 2x. And even our neighboring country, India also passed digital personal data protection law in this year, August. Early of this year, August. So other countries are developing relating to this online safety thing, but I guess our government is trying to say we are also into that thing, because I have saw a speech from Mr. President 2 or 3 days back addressing some digital platform, and says that we also have to have a sustainable digital society and related to that things. But in this bill, he has done nothing to success that goal, because we have to look into world and see what is really online safety about. That is not about government's protection. That is about people's protection in online platforms. So we have to look into that, and we can look into. There are so many laws in the world, even so we have to look into those laws, and we can shape it to according to Sri Lankan culture if we want. What we so-called culture we say every time. So we can shape it to related to Sri Lankan culture and laws, and we can make a new law, I believe, rather this online safety bill, because in this bill there is nothing about online safety.
Aisha, can I just add one thing to what Bhadraka was saying? That is about the German law and the French law, which says within 24 hours things have to be removed if there's a takedown notice. Now, the difference between our 24-hour takedown notice and their takedown notice is there is a judicial process where the person who will be affected has a right to be heard. As opposed to it in our bill, the commission issues the takedown notice and it has to be taken down within 24 hours or we lose our account. We don't get to say, no, this is why I say that this is true. And there's no one who is going to decide on it within that 24 hours whether what I say is true or otherwise. Now, if you look at it, there's like millions of posts on social media every day. Imagine this so-called online safety commission having to go through those posts when somebody complains saying this is not true. They will have to sit and go through these. And imagine if we have to go to court, to the Court of Appeal to quash these decisions. We will have to have a separate Court of Appeal with about 500 judges just to hear these, because it has to be taken down within 24 hours and you can't take down something without hearing me. So it's a practical thing and they have to find a practical solution. And just because our law says that intermediaries also must comply, otherwise we will block them in Sri Lanka and all of it. You think that the same clout that United Kingdom or Germany has over a social media company, we have the same clout? No, we don't. If we say that we are going to tax them 10%, 1% of their global revenue, they will laugh at us and say, you do it, we will go away. It's the same thing that happened in Pakistan when they tried to do it. They said that we are going to pack up and leave. So this is something that has to be done with a little bit more tactical knowledge, a practical approach. Without doing it, Sri Lanka is too small to go and try a sledgehammer on the tech companies. I think the annual income of the tech companies put together is several times more than the GDP of Sri Lanka. So we are not in a position of power to negotiate and bargain. So it's important that we realize that, and it's important that we figure out what online safety is and how it should be protected before we go into this venture of trying to stop a particular aspect so that the government is protected.
Thank you, sir, for giving us a very elaborative point in the matter of the online safety bill. I hope the participants are taking and keeping note on these important matters, which will be helping you in future. So I would like to thank once again our panelists for having a wonderful explanations, and I hope our audience got insight about the topic. So I could see that we had a wonderful and enlightening session, I must say. So now is a time for us to go for Q&A session, and I would like to extend this opportunity for audience as well. So I would like to direct this question to Sir Teshia Veragoda. Sir, there was one participant who have asked, is it true that this bill can be used by the government to control opposite political views?
There are several questions which are connected to this. So could I just click on all of them so that I can answer the few of them together instead of one by one, because we might overlap otherwise.
All right, so that would do.
Yeah. So the first question that was there was, is it true that this bill can be used to oppress opposition political views? Obviously, any view that is not palatable to the government can be termed as fake news and shut down. I mean, we have had in the past situations where people have got arrested for saying, expressing their personal views. For years, we have seen that. From Jana Gosha to Purvasi Peramuna case to all of it. In the recent times, there was this boy who said that the president's website has been hacked. And they didn't want that to become news, so they arrested him for saying so. But in fact, the president's website was hacked. So, and if this law was there, what this boy said, although it is true, the government can say that it is not, and then he will be in trouble. So the same goes to the opposition. They challenge the position of the government, they challenge a statistic, you get arrested. So that is that. And does this bill give too much power to the police for unlawful arrest? Yes, it does. Because at the end of the day, it is the police who will do the executive part of the investigation process. So they will arrest. We have this system of shoot first, ask questions later. So literally. So that's what's going to happen. And then somebody else asks whether this can be challenged by FR. No, the bills must be challenged by an application within 2 weeks that is made to the Supreme Court. There are several petitions that have been filed, and now the matter has been fixed for, I believe, 18th, 19th, and 20th of this month for hearing and determination by the Supreme Court.
Thank you, sir, for giving us the answer to our question. And I would like to direct a question to the Sir Bhadraka Manavendra. Sir, how practical is it to control social media through a law? Because people abroad can upload things to social media and they can't be controlled by a Sri Lankan law.
That's why I talk about the sustainable digital society. So there are some things which we can control from the law, and there are some things which we can't control from the law. So that is why if you can remember, when I talk about the sustainable digital society, I mentioned 3 rights about the digital, 3 digital rights. And after that, soon after that, I said, for sustainability, we should promote digital literacy among users. including their critical awareness and digital culture. So that is very important. So even let's take a very easy example now. In the law, committing a murder is an offense, but people do, right? So but law can fix says that this is an offense, this is an offense, and that these are the punishments for this offense. That the law can be there, but people commits them. So we need to have a digital sustainable. So if we want to have a digital sustainable society, we have to have awareness programs. We have to give people more education about these platforms, and those are the ways that we have to make our society more knowledgeable about these platforms. Otherwise, we can have so many laws that we can just pass the laws from the parliament and take it as to the books and read, but that won't help. So we have to educate people and give their knowledge how to behave in these online platforms. That is the only way that we can do that.
So in addition to that, there is another question which pops up. Is it true that online defamation cannot be complained to police or put a criminal lawsuit against?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, can I just answer that, Bhadraka?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay. So in 2000, until 2003, 2002, I think, criminal defamation was part of our law. Now, criminal defamation has been used throughout the world to silence political critics, to silence the political opposition. So that was the very reason when the present president was the prime minister, took it upon himself to abolish the criminal defamation sections that were there in the penal code. He took it upon himself to do that because he saw how it was used before and he didn't want it used anymore. So it's ironic that we have done the full circle, and now that he's the president, a law is now coming up trying to do the same thing that was done away so many years ago. Some of the reasons were the cases like the Victor Ivan trial, the Singha Ratnatunga case, and several others where there was criminal defamation against journalists. So now we are trying to go back and come to square one again. Now this present law also more or less does the same thing. So I would say that you can't and you shouldn't criminalize defamation. If somebody has defamed you, go ahead and file a private action, claim damages. The state doesn't have to get involved to defend your dignity and reputation. That's not the business of the state. The business of the state is to protect individuals from harm, physical harm or harm that causes some sort of discomfort more than just hurt feelings. Because hurt feelings can't be judged beyond reasonable doubt. So, therefore, it is very necessary that we keep our hurt feelings by somebody else's defamation out of the penal law books. So that's one aspect. Second aspect is, yes, absolutely, you can't go to the police station and lodge a complaint saying that my feelings got hurt. You can't. It's a civil matter. There's no criminal offense. We see day in, day out, we see politicians running to the CID and complaining, saying, somebody made a complaint, now do something. Then what does the CID do? They will go and catch some fellow, drag him by the neck, come and produce him under the Computer Crimes Act, Section 6, Section 7, or Section 10. They have nothing to do with any of those sections. But I probably have said that the particular minister did some jugglery to help one of his friends. Minister is hurt, his hurt feelings, he goes and lodges a complaint with the CID. Because he's a minister, the CID must do something. This is the existing situation. Imagine if something like this comes into play. Imagine if a law says that you can't make statements like that. Section 22, for example. It will be termed harassment. All of us will be in jail one day. I'm sure that I will be, because I say a lot of things. So that is why it's very important that we understand context. No, defamation is a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. Therefore, you can't go to the police station and lodge complaints. Then you are getting the state public money to safeguard your personal interests. That's not the concern of the state. So it's important that we realize it, and it's important that we stand against it.
Thank you, sir, for giving us a wonderful answer. And I would like to ask from Sir Bhadraka Manabedra, sir, whether you have anything to be add up on this note.
No, Mr. Tisha would explain it very well. That is true. So I have nothing to add on that. It is perfect answer for the question.
All right, sir. Thank you. So this question is for the Sir Tisha Veragoda. Sir, on online safety, can the regulation on information be considered as a depriving the right to access information?
So there are several cases where the Supreme Court has held the right to freedom of expression also includes the right to receive information. This was held by Justice Mark Fernando in the SLBC case in 1999. But in 2015, our constitution was amended and Article 14A came about with the right to information. So, what we must now understand is we have a right to information as well as we have a right to expression. Now, personal data protection, we have our own law. So they go hand in hand. Even in the Right to Information Act, it specifically says personal information cannot, third-party personal information cannot be disclosed without consent. So there are boundaries to our right to information also. But at the same time, there are boundaries to our freedom of expression. For example, defamation. What it means is that I can say what I want. But if I say something that defames you, you can sue me. I'm not immune or protected from being sued. That's the idea. But what these present laws are, the proposed law is trying to do is go beyond that. So I think it's important that we realize it and we take cognizance of that.
Thank you, sir, for answering that question. And this question is, I'll be directing to the Bhadraka Manabedra. Sir, does the law by any chance can be controlled by who in the power against common people? If so, does it affect the freedom of speech? Then over the time period, does it will control people in the name of law and order?
Yes, it is like this. Now, first we have to understand Parliament is the main body to enact the laws, and their duty is to pass laws for the society, betterment of the society. So, if Parliament's duty is to shape the society for their betterment. So, if Parliament passes the law which violates fundamental rights of the people, that is not their duty. So that is why we have provisions to go to a Supreme Court and file a fundamental rights case and take necessary actions against those laws, those bills. So we have to understand what are the responsibilities of the legislator as well as the citizens. So if we understand those things, that this question will be not arise in the future.
Thank you, sir, for answering that question. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now running out of time for today's session. So, I would like to thank that Mr. Bhadraka Manamedra and Mr. Tisha Veragoda for coming all the way here to our session and explaining all certain and substances point all of these legal matters in a way that is really keep engaging by anyone who can understand. Thank you so much, everyone.